I say to all my clients and I say it to all my colleagues that for me, there are two sides to marketing. There is marketing, which is, this creative ideas. Let's talk about messaging. Let's talk about, something unconventional. And then there is boring marketing. It's building all those endless spreadsheets, tracking things, tracking responses, looking at the data, looking at the analytics, analyzing data. And it's very, very boring and gray. And for that, you need this kind of work ethic to push through.
Hi, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, you get my conversations with peak-performing thought leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs. We explore how you can innovate through creativity, compassion, and collaboration. I believe that innovation combined with compassion and creative thinking can save the world, and I aim to bring you ways you can do it too. If you're enjoying the show, I'd be super grateful if you can support it by buying me a cup of coffee. You can buy me a cuppa at buymeacoffee.com/Isolde. And now, let's get on with the show. Hey there, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg. I'm thrilled you're here, and I am honored and thrilled and so happy to have this week's guests. You are going to just love her. I already do. Liel Anisenko is an experienced full-stack marketing pro, passionate about supporting the growth of early-stage startups and newly founded companies by applying field-proven strategies for gaining exposure and traction, growing customer base, and raising capital. And if you don't know what that means, I'm just going to say that what that means is she's really good at her job and she does it in some really cool and innovative ways. So she's got 15 years of hands-on B2B, business-to-business marketing experience in IoT, biomed, telco, law enforcement, construction tech, and retail. She's worked with various companies from startups to Fortune 500 enterprises, and seeing startups grow is her ultimate passion and reward, which I think is awesome. Now, here's where Liel and I have some things in common. Liel was raised in Russia and moved to Israel at the age of 17 alone. Now, if you know anything about moving to Israel, you know that as soon as you do that, you also go into the army. So she took off on her own after being raised in Russia. She moved to a new country where she may or may not have spoken the language, so you can tell how courageous she is. And she's built a successful career in tech. She's built her own family. She volunteers for various causes, and she's acquired friends for life who've become her own family. How amazing is this woman? I'm so happy to have you here, Liel. Thank you for being here.
Wow, thank you so much, Isolde.
I'm so impressed with you all over the place because when I immigrated from the Soviet Union, and it was the Soviet Union when my family left, we spent time in Israel and then we went to the USA. I was 7. So I had almost no responsibilities just to accept, be a 7-year-old for the most part. You took off on your own at 17 and moved to a brand new country. It shows such perseverance, such heart, such courage. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm so incredibly honored to know you because you show, no, seriously, this is so important for people to understand. Leaving somewhere like Russia, leaving somewhere like that has that incredible tenacity for keeping people where they are, you went, no, I'm not going to stay, and you took off and you forged a life. Can you talk a little bit about what that took on your part and how you got inspired to make such a huge change so young?
Thank you so much. Actually, 2 things come to mind. First thing is not related, but it is related to your question. So I was born in Soviet Union as well. And when I was 5 years old, I think it fell apart. And when it fell apart, there were a lot of challenges for people to live their lives. Like there was a lack of food, there was a lack of clothing, basic staples really for everyday life. And I remember my grandparents going to those government offices, standing in line for hours, getting the coupons, and then with those coupons, going back to the supermarket, standing again in line for the supermarket, waiting for hours, then getting into the supermarket and getting the food ultimately, which was rationed for every family.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to tag along because, I was a little girl, and I remember that experience as a blast. I remember standing in the lines, in the rain, in the snow, whatever it was, finding other kids my age, playing tag, playing hide and seek, having the best time. And when I think about it, and sometimes I speak to my grandparents about it, for them it was the worst experience in their life, you know, like having that lack and scarcity of something that they need to survive and having children dependent on them. And for me, it is a positive experience. I remember it as something good. And the same goes to me moving to Israel. I really did not invest much thought into moving. I graduated high school. It was a Jewish high school for girls. It was very obvious for me that this is, you know, what I do. I tell it to people and I realize that it's a big deal. But for me back then, it wasn't. I was 17. I was very idealistic. I wanted to build my own life. I wanted to be independent. It was such a great opportunity to not be dependent on my parents, my grandparents, to make my own decisions in life. And I went after that. And somehow everything worked out miraculously. But I have a few clues though why it worked out. It's not really the cause and effect kind of clues, but I believe that once you decide that when you don't have anything to share because you come to Israel, you don't have any family, you don't have any resources, get whatever the package the government gives you for the first time just to get by, you really don't have anything to give.
Mm-hmm.
And then you give and you give, and then you make friends and you make connections, and then those things come back to you. So this is like my big life philosophy: giving first and trusting and knowing that somehow you will receive back.
I love that you said that, because as a marketer, you must espouse that similar philosophy with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So, the way I want to ask this is, when you're in that space of giving, what is your notion? Do you have any preconceptions of what kind of reciprocity to expect? Or is it just a hope that there will be as a person, but also as a marketer? When you're in that, I'm going to give and give and give and give, and it'll come back to me. What is your process there? Is it with an eye towards reciprocity, or is it more, I work on it and I give it freely and we'll see what happens?
So it's really intuitive. I think I never made this conscious decision of, you know, let me give first, and then we all know that kind of principle of reciprocity, and then expect to get something back. I'll give you an example. I think 2 weeks ago, somebody approached me for a really small scale project for a business that is not very interesting to me and not very lucrative. And they asked me to give them a proposal. And I worked for a while on that proposal. And while I was working on it, I was thinking, well, maybe they should do that. And maybe they should check that. And maybe they should do that strategy. And maybe they should implement that. And they should really think about that. And I wrote it all down. And I had this feeling that it's not going to go anywhere, but I really wanted to give those tips to them. And they called me back 2 days later and said, thank you so much. Your proposal was amazing. Thank you for all the tips. And but we're not going to go ahead with you. And I was thankful because I knew that their business was not going to move a needle for me in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy that I had an experience of sharing my knowledge with them, and maybe it will help them somewhere. They will maybe hold something in the back of their head and they will use it. But 2 days later, I got a client, and a week later, I got a client, and then I got a call. I do believe strongly that all these things are related, but I have no tangible way of proving it to you or saying that this is how it works. It's just me and my, core beliefs.
Mm-hmm. And I think those core beliefs, I'm right there with you. I think we don't necessarily have to see the rope that ties all of these things together to believe that they're related. So in that process of, they could try this and they could try that and they could try that, you came up with ideas for them, even though you weren't particularly excited or passionate about the project that they were offering you. So where do those ideas come from? How do you arrive at ideas, particularly if you're not excited and thrilled about the project? Is it just your natural creativity, or is there some well that you draw upon in order to be able to come up with cool and exciting and innovative ideas for a project you're not even that excited about?
Hmm. That's such a good question. I really don't know. I think many of the ideas come from my experience. I have worked with quite a few companies in different fields. So marketing strategies for B2B and B2C are very, very different. I learn a lot. I read a lot. I kind of accumulate things in my head. And then when I start thinking, they pop up.
Mm,
So maybe the takeaway from here is that to be open to learning new things, reading daily about strategies, finding there are a lot of people out there who talk about marketing strategies, or write about it. There's like really an ocean of knowledge there,
mm-hmm,
and there's an overload of information I find. So what I find for myself useful, I seasonally get very attached to some of the influencers, and I
mm-hmm,
follow them. Yeah, their YouTubes, their Instagrams, their TikToks, their LinkedIn posts, their blogs. Sometimes I get, sick of them and then I move to other ones. Sometimes I don't. These days I'm obsessed with Gary Vee. I tried and tested a few of his strategies. He's unbelievable. By the way,
yeah.
he's also very, very pro giving unconditionally.
Mm-hmm,
That's why I love him at
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
moment. And I remember those things. And sometimes when something sounds really, really cool, I implement it right away and I test it. And if it works for me, then I try to replicate it with other clients or with other projects. But that's basically what I do. I just, follow people, I listen to what they say, and then I kind of try to use it. This client specifically, his proposal was kind of combination of things that I've learned recently, things that I've done before, all the things that I know that, could work. And it was fun and I enjoyed doing that proposal. I really loved it. I felt like this energy, of giving and fun and marketing creativity. And I was really grateful for that opportunity. It was amazing.
I love that you said that. I'm going to say this a little bit right now, just so that we are giving the best possible episode. There's something going on with your microphone.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
don't
Because I'm
know.
moving. Yes,
Ah, okay.
I'm gonna adjust it. Okay.
Because I'm like, it's you're talking and I'm hearing.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
I'm gonna just fix it on the table and I'm gonna stop. I was hugging it and then I was moving because I was
right,
excited.
I
Okay.
I understand.
Let
No,
me
it's
let me not hug it anymore.
I'm the same way. I speak with my hands, so I have to have a microphone that's nowhere near me, so I can't
So
touch it.
Israeli, by the way, to know.
So I love that you are into Gary Vee. I have followed him for a long time, and I love what he says, and I also love that when he realizes something isn't appropriate or doesn't really work, he's okay changing his mind. Like he doesn't double down
Yes.
on things that don't work. One of my favorite things is when Crushing It or Crush It actually first came out, he was talking a lot about, don't get any sleep. That was a lot of what he said. What are you doing from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m.? You could be doing social media, you could be doing et
Do
cetera,
you
et
remember
cetera.
that time when that was extremely in? Not
Yeah.
to be constantly working. It was so in. Everybody was, I'm not working, I'm working, I'm busy, I'm working and working, I'm not sleeping. It was like so in
Yeah.
until it changed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it changed in part because people started realizing actually it's you need your sleep.
Mhm.
And Gary Vee, to his credit, went, okay, wait, that was not appropriate. Let me change how I'm saying things because he doesn't double down. He went, okay, I will double down on what keeps working, but if it's not working, I'll step away. So my question to you, Liel, is how do you approach that? Do you have a similar viewpoint or do you keep pushing on something because you think it might work?
Well, that's an excellent question. Mentality wise and the way we are raised, we keep pushing things. Russians
Mm-hmm.
don't back down.
For sure.
I mean, they don't change their minds. They just, this is how it is, and we're gonna do it till the rest of our lives.
For
And I
sure.
have this thing in me, I know it, which is useful in certain things, like if you want to train for a marathon, if you wanna lose weight, right? Then that's great. But in life, I think it's amazing to keep that flexible mindset. And I love actually Gary for that. He talks about it a lot. I love it so much when he says, you make up your mind to do something, then you get a new data, you change your mind, and it's cool. I actually experienced something very similar with a client of mine who wants to he wants to be more present on Instagram. And I used actually Gary Vee's $1.80 strategy. I
I
can
love
talk
that
about it.
strategy.
It's an amazing strategy. I used it for a different client of mine, which had a retail product. And also very competitive business, very hard to stand out, a lot of competitors. And I tried it for them and it worked unbelievably well. And with this new client who's also in retail, more like services, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this strategy out. And I tried it out for 3 days. And I always tell myself, I'm going to try it for 1 week. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to see what the data is in it. And then we'll see how we go ahead. And I tried it for 3 days and I see that it's not working. And then Gary Vee comes back to my mind, to my head, and tells me, just drop it. You see that other things are working much better. That just focus on them. So yeah, 100%. And the more I hear him talk about it, the more videos I see of him, the more I remind myself how in marketing, especially, it's so important to really assess and reassess and change the course and stay flexible all the time. And if we're talking about marketing strategies, one of the really powerful things to do, there's a great book written by the founder of DuckDuckGo search engine. His name is, I'll have to look it up. I have problem remembering names, but he is the founder of DuckDuckGo search engine, which is an engine that does not collect any data from the users, and it values privacy. He has written a book called Traction, a great book, a must read for everyone. And basically what he says there is that you have 19 channels of traction for your business, no matter what business you have. He lists them all. There's PR, there's email marketing, there's influencer marketing, many channels. And he says, try out all of them, collect data, see how they work, and then capitalize and leverage those that you find effective. And do it until you see that it doesn't work for you anymore. And then try others. And that's a powerful notion for me. I think this is one of the things that really, really helped me in my practice every day.
I love the notion, and I think it takes a certain kind of courage, because I think you have to be willing to admit that something didn't work. And that can be hard for people. That this, whatever this is. And I do coaching, and I talk to my clients a lot about being okay with failing. It's, you have to be okay with something not working and not putting a lot of faith in the result, but rather in the process. So how do you become okay with it? How did you become okay with something doesn't work? I'm going to change it, instead of going, no, I'm going to keep trying. This book sounds like it helped you, but is there an internal process that happened that made you go, this is not a bad thing? I've learned something. I'm moving on.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. And I think it's a process that is happening. It's an ongoing process. I have this tendency of, when something works, to get really attached to it. And you also get attached to your reputation of someone who's very successful in certain ways, who has succeeded in doing X, Y, Z. So when I fail, it's not easy for me. But I'm working actively on detaching myself from my results, only attaching myself to my actions and the process. And yeah, unbelievable. I remember we just discussed a couple of days ago on Gloria's group, that story that I heard on TikTok of a girl who is an artist living in New York City, and she felt very, very stuck. She spoke to her mentor, and he told her to go out and get 100 no's. And she went out and she applied for various competitions and to different galleries and blogs and podcasts and news and stuff like that. And she did not get to 100 no's. She got so many yeses that she was just very busy processing them. But I think that permission that he gave her to get no's, that kind of realization that, wow, it's okay, get your no's, it's going to be good for you. That resonated with me so much, and I'm learning to embrace it. And actually, I think we live in a great time where it is okay to be vulnerable, and I think it is kind of celebrated in the media and in the social media conversations. I've seen it numerous times. I've seen a very, very kind of a leading marketing agency here in Israel. Um, I've seen them do a video about how they organized the conference before COVID-19 time, and they invited their clients and they invited their partners. They got all their recipes they needed. They made a calculation. They rented a space. They brought in catering. They brought in speakers, and people did not show up.
Mm.
They videotaped themselves standing there waiting for their guests, being stood up. And I saw it and I loved it. I was like, because we all experience those failures. We all have those results. We all have those days where everything just sucks. Nothing works despite all the projections and forecasts and expectations. And we have to admit it more because I'm sure that everybody has failures. And this is part of the learning process, and this is part of what makes us resilient ultimately and better at what we do.
I so agree with you. And it's so interesting that that notion of being stood up, of having your hopes up and realizing it's not going to happen. And I think a determining factor of someone's character is how well you handle that. Because yes, it can make you devastated, or you can go, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to do something differently next time. So with you being willing to be vulnerable, especially with where we're both from, vulnerability is not considered an asset. It's
No.
considered very much a weakness. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your history, where you're from, your upbringing helped you develop yourself as someone who is exploring this idea of being vulnerable with even in your professional life, because there's a story in there, I'm sure, and I would love to know how that forged who you are today.
Wow. We're talking some deep stuff today, Zolda.
I know.
It's interesting because my life really does, uh, my life can be separated into two: my life in Russia and my upbringing in Russia, and then my life in Israel. So in Russia, I was brought up by my grandparents since age 0. I consider them my parents,
Mm,
and they were very, very loving, very strict. They really um, hold me up to my values, responsibilities, and my name. Like if you say something, you have to stand by it. You have to be conscious of what you say to people, how you behave, because this is your name. You should never do anything that jeopardizes your reputation.
hmm
It's them. And then I went to this very elite school where discipline was extreme, extreme. We were not allowed to do anything except for listen to the teacher and do our homework and learn things by heart. So this was me, and till the age of 17. And maybe that's why I had this urge of moving to different country, leaving everything behind, just because maybe it's too much for certain people, that kind of discipline.
mm.
And then I moved to Israel, and I was adopted by American family that are, extremely in touch with their feelings. They talk about everything. They go to therapy. They're
Wow.
open. They say, I love you to each other. They fight. They make up 2 seconds afterwards. And it was extremely, 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 on one hand, I was so drawn to it. I loved it. On the other hand, it was a very hard thing to swallow. So I think it's a blend of those two influences that kind of shaped me. On one hand, I'm like, I have this stoicism of, going after my thing. On the other hand, um, my family here in Israel, they really did influence and gave me that soft edge, if I may. Um, yeah, I think that's what it is. And I think I draw on both of these influences in my everyday life, working with clients, um, promoting my projects, and learning things. Yeah.
It's I love that you said what you said, because it's very clear to me, just talking to you just even a little bit in the few weeks that we've known each other, that you have very much both sides to you. that you have this very incredible work ethic, your word is your bond, and I that's very easy to see, and you're just
Thank
brimming
you.
with integrity, which I love. And then I also see you as a visionary. I see you as a very creative person, and I see the marketing as being a way to combine both the
Mhm.
strict work ethic, but also this someone who can envision creative ways to do what you do, unusual, innovative ways. And this is the Innovative Mindset podcast, haha. So that's something that I find really fascinating and really worthy of respect from me. This notion of combining two what could be seen as disparate personality traits into something that you can work with together. So when you do that, when you're working with a new client, do you rely on one over the other, or do you have it as a sort of a gestalt, and whatever one
Mm,
needs to be there is the one that you focus on?
100%. So actually, I use both, because I always say, I say to all my clients and I say it to all my colleagues that for me, there are two sides to marketing. There is marketing, which is, this creative ideas. Let's talk about messaging. Let's talk about, something unconventional. And then there is boring marketing. It's building all those endless spreadsheets, tracking things, tracking responses, looking at the data, looking at the analytics, analyzing data. And it's very, very boring and gray. And for that, you need this kind of work ethic to push through. Like, for example, a client of mine that I work for, I spent, I think, hours just building the list of hashtags um, by pillars so that I can automate the process later on for his Instagram activities. And it was boring as hell. You literally go and check the amount of posts for each hashtag. You categorize them, you color code them, you sort them by their relevance, by type of content and everything. It's boring. It's boring as hell. And you have to really do this because you can, I mean, you can definitely give it to your team members to do that. You can outsource that, but this is something that has to be done. And even if somebody else does it for you, you have to really you have to really look into it, sit down, concentrate, and look into those nitty-gritty details. um, for the previous company I worked for, one of the things that we ran PPC campaigns, Google campaigns, which are paid campaigns, and you pay for keywords that people search for. And the agency that ran those campaigns for that company told me that I was the only person that requested to see the search words on the weekly basis, and I would go through those hundreds and hundreds of search terms by which the website users would find that website, and I would filter them out and put them into a list of negative keywords so that to make sure that those people who do not want to buy that product do not get exposed to those ads. And it was a very, very, very tedious task. So it required to know the product and required to sit down and invest at least 25 minutes from your life into doing that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a boring side of marketing. On the other hand, when you see the results and you see the conversion rate going up, when you see leads coming in, quality leads coming in, people who like you really want to get to your website and they fill in this form, then this excitement and this dopamine kicks in, and there's this reward mechanism that makes you keep going.
I'm taking all of that in. I love it. I love that you get so excited about the sort of the reward, excited enough that you're willing to do the what you called the painstaking, boring parts. I can't do the boring parts. The boring parts make me want to run and go to another
I have some tips
town.
for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that, oh no, I can't do that. No, there's not enough coffee in the world. So let's talk about this notion of what you're willing to do. And what I mean by that is something pushes you to succeed.
Mhm.
What is that? What is that thing inside you that is a key factor to your success?
Wow. There's so much to it. Okay, if we're vulnerable today, let's be vulnerable till the end. I
Absolutely.
think it's that underdog kind of mentality
Mm,
where, I mean, even in Russia, I was raised with so much love by my grandparents, but I was not raised by my parents, and I always felt like an outsider um, in school. And then I moved to Israel, and I did not have any family. And again, I always felt like I was on the fringes. I was an outsider.
mm,
And then being a woman in tech, young woman in tech, is not something that is always easy. And all those kind of things, they tell you, okay, fine. So, oh, you just need to work a little harder to prove yourself more, to get to a different level of expertise, to really pave your path in this world. And I think this is something that drives me. And the more I pave it, it just doesn't end. You want to pave it more and more. I think that's what it is. Which is unfortunate, in a way, because I never feel like I'm enough. I never feel like I did enough. I always have ideas and projects I want to do, things I want to volunteer for, like those causes, people I want to help, and I never have enough time. So I always push for more things. You know, there's a different mentality that tells you that, you're enough, what you're doing is enough, life is good, life is beautiful, you're allowed to pause. But that's not me, unfortunately. I think it's a curse.
It's funny that you say that. I tell my clients that all the time. Remember that the quote I use is, I am enough, I do enough, I have enough. And it's hard for me to believe it about myself too. I always have, 42 projects going on at once, and then I'm looking for the 43rd. And it's something that, for me, if we're going to be vulnerable, let's go all the way, like you
Yes.
said. For me, it's this is my life. This is the one life as far as I know, and doggone it, I want no regrets. And
Absolutely.
so that's sort of the
I love
process
this.
for my life, right? So what is that thought process for you? Other than what's the next thing? When you stop and you think about a new client, a new adventure, a new hill you want to climb, whether it's literal or figurative, are you always in the I'm going to do it mode, or are you sometimes in the I'm kind of tired and I could just sit down with a cup of tea mode?
Hmm. So I'm learning. I'm learning. I mean, definitely enjoy a cup of tea. I enjoy a good company of friends. I enjoy a good, conversation. I enjoy leisure. I actually do enjoy it very much. So I try to make sure that I have that time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, whether it's hiring a babysitter, and going out with your girlfriends, or just, going for a day to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is like our ultimate leisure city where you can go to coffee shops and restaurants and be like just relaxed by the beach. So yeah. So it's that. So yeah, I definitely try to pause, and I enjoy it. I really, really love it. It's just that kind of, I definitely relate to what you just said. We have one life and we just need to go after everything. There's this photograph I saw from a coffee shop somewhere in Holland, I think, and it had that neon sign that said, "All I ever wanted was everything." I saw it and I said, "That's me.
I
That's
love
me."
it. I love it. I need that photograph. All I ever wanted
I'll send it
was
to you. I'll
everything.
send it to you. Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. And it's true. Why not want everything? Why not want to experience everything you possibly can? Because to me that's what life is about. So let's talk about that. What is it that's exciting to you? What is it that drives you other than the next challenge? What makes Liel go, I'm going to do this?
Wow. Seeing the potential of something and playing a certain part in facilitating that potential to come out and realize itself. This is something that is the ultimate dopamine for me.
Mm,
Hmm. Yeah. So for example, if there's an idea a startup early stage, and they have this beautiful idea that can change the world, can make lives of people around the world better.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I really want to be there when it happens. I really want to help them do that. I really, really, really want. And this is something that I'm involved in these days, and I just love it, and I'm so, so grateful. I don't know whether my efforts are going to be those in the end that will bring the fruit, but I'm trying and I'm there with them. And actually, it's, going back to that philosophy of mine where you give and you don't expect anything in return. I find that very often in marketing, it is the same way. You work on a certain strategy, you put in hours, you really invest your time, and you kill yourself over something, and then you feel like it's not really pushing the needle. It's not really doing anything. But then the founder gets a phone call for someone else who saw something that might be related to their marketing efforts, and then they order a product, or they ask for POC, which is proof of concept. And how many times it happened to me? I actually cannot say honestly with the whether I helped that, but I was part of that process. I was part of them. I was part of their journey, and you know that's also a great reward. Being very honest with you here, because as a marketer, you would say, I was the one that did the presentation. I was the one that prepared the campaign. Because of that campaign, that lead converted, and that's how we closed the POC. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm just going to be honest.
And I think that that is so that's poignant and it's important, and I think that says so much, as I said, about your level of integrity. But it's also true that you, as someone who is sort of the in many ways the public face of whatever company you're working for, even if you're not Liel being the public face, your story, your vision helps the company get the word out somehow. You're part of that story, whether or not anybody else gives you credit. I think
Mhm.
on some level doesn't
Or
matter.
where the credit is due.
Right. And so here's the thing. Like, one of the things the reason that I started this podcast was to highlight the work of people who are doing incredible and creative things to help others. That's a lot of what drives me, is I love that notion. And it seems to me like you are very much in that same place, although you approach it as a marketer, and I am not a natural marketer at all. So I can't possibly do what you do. And yet at its core is a desire to serve for both
Yeah.
me and you. So what happens when someone who they just don't have a budget, they don't have connections, they have an idea maybe, but
Mhm.
they've got nothing else, and you meet them and they say, this is my idea, and you might love the idea, but they've got zero resources. What do
Mhm.
you tell them? How can you help them, and if so, how? And if you can't help them, what do you tell them?
I um I always have a soft spot for people who don't have resources, because those are the projects that really push you to be creative and to really try something out of the box.
Mm,
Because it's very easy to get thousands of leads with great marketing budgets, and it's boring. You put in money and you get leads. It's straightforward. There's
hmm
Google Ads is there, AdWords is for this, and many, many other platforms. But when you don't have any money, and you need to get results, this is when it gets really interesting, and this is when it really gives you that rush of excitement. So when people come to me in that situation, I just sit down with them and I ask them many, many questions about their market, about their product, um, about what problem they solve, how they are better at it than their competition. And then I just tell them, just map it out. Think about your ideal client. Where does he live? Where does she live? What does she do? Where she shops, where she works out, what she reads, um, is she on social media? Does she watch YouTube? Does she drive a car? Does she go shopping? Think about all her life. Imagine her entire environment, and then think where you can expose your product or your service to her, to your ideal client. And so you get a lot of mapping. So we just throw the ideas on canvas, write down things, she probably reads that blog, and she probably reads that blog, and she probably follows that thing, and she probably attends meetups, and she probably is on Instagram. She's probably reading, I don't know, if she lives like I live in this rural area in Israel, and there's this weekly weekly magazine, a bulletin that everybody reads. So for example, she reads that. She gets she's subscribed to an email of that church or that synagogue or whatever, and just map everything out. Just think about every possible scenario she can come across, any information and product, and then try to group those things into channels and try to think how you get in front of her. For example, you approach the curator of the church email list. You tell him about your product, about what you sell, and you ask him for his permission to send the information about you to their subscribers, or you join the list where people are allowed to actually promote their products. So you go in that Facebook group of mothers who only use organic cosmetics, and you see in the rules of the group whether you're allowed to promote your services, and you network with people, and then you do cross promotion with businesses that are related to you. And the key here is that you never know what's going to work, what's not going to work. You start and you do things, and I've seen it so many times where when you start talking to people, things open up for you. And the more you talk and the more you do, the more things open up for you. And then you look back and you're like, wow, I've got customers. Wow, I've got business going. And it's incredible.
Wow.
It was a little bit all over the place, but
No. I love it. I love it because that's the thing for me as someone, as I said, I do marketing, but I'm not a natural marketer. I love hearing that it can be a little all over the place because that's how I feel every day when I'm trying to do marketing. So within that, you have you've done marketing for people who are just starting out. You've done marketing for Fortune 500 companies, and you've made a name for yourself as a woman in tech. And that's hard. I've worked at NASA for 20 plus years. So
yes.
being in science, being in tech as a woman, it brings its own set of challenges.
Mhm.
And so when you're working with people as a woman in technology, as a woman working in, tech and science, what's different? What's more challenging? And how do you meet those challenges as a woman in tech? And also, I hope I'm not insulting you when I say this, but as a younger woman in tech. I'm significant. I think I am old enough to be your mother, but the point is that there's a unique set of challenges being a woman in tech and being a younger woman in tech, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what those are and how you handle them.
Wow, wow. I'm trying to think how I can tell you exactly what I think without insulting anyone.
Well, the people who would be insulted by that are probably not listening to this
That's
podcast.
true.
Just
That's
saying.
so true. That's so true. I agree with you. Well, I mean, Israel is a great country, and I can only talk about Israeli experience. I don't know. I mean, I do work with companies all over the world, but I don't have that intimate knowledge of what's going on in other work environments. Here in Israel, you have incredible, incredible people. You have incredible men and women, and then you have some people who are less incredible,
Mm.
and you often find yourself in environments which are dominantly male, and it sometimes could be challenging
Mm.
to thrive there. Um, I mean, I've seen it happen so many times where you sit in a meeting and you try to participate in a discussion and you're being silenced and you are being dismissed, even though you bring in the results, you have this a beautiful record, and you know, um, people just look at you as this decoration on the wall. And I mean, I've been in so many situations like that, and you have to grow a very, very, very thick skin, and you have to ignore the things. But this can be very, very challenging. There are so many there's so much research on how if if a female talks with affirmation. No, how do you call it? If a woman is assertive
Mm-hmm.
and she talks in an assertive tone, she's perceived as aggressive. I was told that I am intimidating and aggressive, and my male colleagues find it not comfortable to be with me in the same meeting. And ever since I got that comment, I started recording myself. And it was very hard for me to accept that because, I have this notion of myself as this sweetheart. I have so many friends, everybody loves me. I'm this smiley, giggly, like I have very bubbly personality. And then I'm told that my male colleagues are intimidated by me. So I started recording those conversations and I'm listening to them. And what I hear is them yelling at each other. In Israel, it's very, very normal for people to yell at each other, especially if you're male. They yell at each other, they almost curse each other, actually curse each other. And 2 seconds afterwards, they're fine. Everything is fine. But you can say something in an assertive tone, and then you're perceived as this intimidating, unpleasant person. And I've spoken to so many female professionals with the same experience, which is incredible. Incredible.
Oh, okay. So, it's funny. It's funny that you say that. What came into my mind when you were talking about this was, oh, boo-hoo, those poor babies. That's
Right?
that's that's honestly, it's such
Five
a
babies.
uh
Yeah.
they're intimidated by a strong woman. To me, the sort of the mark of a real adult, a real mature person, man or woman or whatever, is you take someone who is being assertive and even aggressive and you meet them where they are. You don't go, "Oh, you're intimidating." No, you go, "Oh, you've got a fire in your belly. Let's hear your ideas and let's see what we can make together."
Yeah.
That's sort of my thing, but I'm not a man. I don't know if it's a male thing or what, but it's also it's indicative to me hearing you talk about it. It makes me wonder, like, in these recordings, in fact, let me ask you this question. In these recordings,
Hmm.
are you doing a lot of speaking?
No, no,
Right.
very little speaking.
Yeah, and it's so
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? Because probably, and I'm making gross generalizations and I'm going to get all sorts of hate mail, but okay. But probably their notion is that every time you do speak that you're somehow interrupting, that you're somehow being too assertive and too aggressive or too whatever, which I don't think is possible, but
Yeah.
whatever. But it's interesting, isn't it, how the perception is that you are behaving like X, but in reality it's Y. It's
Hmm.
completely, it's actually, and
Yeah.
if you play the recording back, you're like, yeah, I said 10 words this entire 2 hours.
Yeah.
Why am I the one who's being, quote, too assertive or
Yeah.
too aggressive? So do you see that changing, and if so, how?
Well, it's very hard for me to say that it all boils down to the organizational culture, which is, I think, strongly shaped by the leaders. Um, So if the leader is someone who values equality and values open conversation and respect, then you see a certain dynamic, which is great. And if it's someone who is less strong on those points, then you see different dynamics, and then you see a lot of politics and you know um, behind the scenes, and it really does boil down to who the leader is. But what is refreshing to see that I see it in LinkedIn, there's a great trend of, those newly funded tech companies where organizational culture is the main focus, and they always, always, always try to kind of shape a good, positive environment that is not toxic, which is very refreshing. I love seeing all those things on LinkedIn feed. It's great. But then there are a lot of companies who are less advanced, less human material oriented, and yeah, yeah. But again, it's very specific to the local Israeli market. I don't know what kind of culture there is. I mean, what about your experience in NASA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? When you can talk about the Israeli corporate culture, I can talk about some of the science and tech I've worked with here in the USA, And the thing is that, at NASA, there are people who are amazing and there are people who are challenging. And eventually you try to stay away from the people who are challenging because they're not going anywhere. As civil servants, they're there till they retire. So, that's one of the reasons, frankly, and I'm honest about this, that's one of the reasons I no longer work at NASA was because some of the culture was a little much for me to take.
Mhm.
So when you're in that framework, when you're in that, oh, I have to make these decisions, it takes a certain amount of courage to be able to make those decisions and go, okay, I'm not going to put myself here anymore. And I recently had a wonderful man named Tom Peters. I don't know if you know who he is on the show. And
Yeah, I saw it.
yeah, he's amazing. And he's the author of what many people consider to be the best book on business ever written called In Search of Excellence. And his thing
Mhm.
is that every board of every company should be made up of 50% women. You should be hiring women. Women make better leaders. They make better investors. They make better negotiators. And the data backs him up. They've done studies. So here's one of the leadership gurus, who's talking about how women being in positions of power is better for the companies.
Mhm.
And so I want to talk to you and get your thoughts on that. I'm sure that you will say, yes, of course, women should be in positions of power, but beneath that, we deserve a seat at the table as women in tech and science, especially.
Mhm.
How do you said that it's about the leadership, but how does someone who has decided that she's going to work on her own or form her own company, how does she get the respect of the people who are outside her company? What does a woman like that need to do to get the respect and the connections and the knowledge to be able to make her company succeed, especially if she's in tech or science?
Well, that's an excellent question. Um, I think I think ultimately it goes down to the internal work
Mm,
with yourself of saying that I deserve and knowing that I deserve to work with amazing, incredible, respectful people and not compromising on that.
mm-hmm.
And again, there's some core beliefs here. One of the core beliefs that I see very strongly unfold in front of my eyes is that whenever you really believe that you deserve something, you get it. You deserve to work with amazing founders, with respectful people, with people who have that, vision and leadership. And when you really, really say to yourself and envision it, it happens. It happens. I mean, I launched my business 4 months ago. I work with incredible, 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 incredible clients. They are brilliant. They are respectful. They champion women, which is wow. I mean, it's so astonishing to see it. One of the founders specifically hired me because he was looking for someone with a female perspective. How incredible is that?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I strongly believe in that. And I did have to to say goodbye to a few founders who I felt like they were not fulfilling that, they were not aligning with that core belief of mine.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting to go back to Tom Peters for a second. Another bit of
Hmm.
data that he had to share was that women do most of the buying in companies, in the household.
Hmm.
The people who generally buy the things that need to be bought are women.
Hmm.
They're the
Yes.
purchasers. So isn't it interesting that we often don't market to women? We don't respect women's opinions. And this has turned into a real feminist episode of the Innovative Mindset podcast. But it is interesting to me that we tend to ignore the very people who are the ones who are going to buy the products that we are trying to market to them. And so, do you see that changing as you develop your business and as you grow as a business owner?
Yeah, it's very interesting because when you work with clients of mine who cater to B2C, to the retail market, then the whole focus is on women buying power. It's unbelievable. It's actually they know that, and everything is from messaging, from the core messaging of the brand, to the look and feel, and to the offering actually is tailored with that notion in mind that our end customer is probably going to be a woman.
Do you see the
Yeah,
same thing in B2B, or is it more and
I
just
definitely do not see that in B2B. I
isn't
definitely
that
do not see
interesting?
that. It's unbelievable. Definitely. It's interesting that you're saying that that research said that women are better investors. I do see incredible women who sit on, who are, members of those VCs. And it always blows my mind because another notion that I heard from somebody else that I work with, he did not say it in a derogatory way. He kind of stated the fact. He says in VCs, I'm again talking about Israel, you see all those men, which are typically, graduates of all those exclusive MBA programs,
Mm-hmm.
very well connected through the families. They see on those boards, that make the decisions when to invest and who to invest in. And you would see one female, and she's typically beautiful. She's
Mm.
typically very she has that kind of appeal. And yes, she's brilliant. Yes, she's educated. Yes, she's super experienced, but she's there also to be that kind of decoration.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah,
And as an adult woman in the 21st century, that just ticks me off.
right? It does.
So it
Hmm.
does. It's wacky. I I honestly, Liel, I could keep you here for the next 6 hours and we could just chat. But I know, you're in Israel and it's in the evening and you have dinner to see to and all of that. So is there something that you feel like you is there a message that you wanna say right now? Is there something that you're like, do this? Is there anything like that pops into your head? Because I do have one other question to ask, which is going to be very similar. But is there
Hmm.
something that you thought, oh, we're going to cover this and we haven't? I would love to hear what that is.
Um, so yeah, I'm feeling my strongest message to everyone is is to not be afraid to be rejected and to go after those 100 no's. This is like my theme. Go after those 100 no's and incredible things will happen to you. Make a list of 100 people that are relevant to your business, who could be your buyers, who could be your collaborators, who could be your partners, and talk to them. And I dare you to get 100 no's. And
I love it.
yes, this is the strongest notion. I think this is the strongest notion for the starting entrepreneurs who do not have budgets for marketing to do that. And you know what? People are incredibly kind. I find that whenever I reach out, you have like that kind of limiting belief. We talked about a lot about limiting beliefs with Gloria in regards to PR, but there's also a lot of limiting beliefs in regards with marketing where why would that blogger want to feature me? Why would that journalist want to cover me? Why would that person want to collaborate with me? But the truth is, every time I reached out to people, the majority of cases, people do want to help you. They want to give you advice. They would want to partner with you. They would want to sit down with you and give you some tips. They would want to, even like donate something to your cause. People do that. People actually, people want to do good. I believe in that. Even, even, I mean, almost everyone. So just don't be afraid. Just don't think that why would he want to work with me? Why would he want to buy from me? Just call him up, send him an email, reach out on LinkedIn, Twitter, and incredible things will happen. I've seen it happen so many times. Yeah, just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid.
All right. Well, there you have it. I think that's lovely. And Liel, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, for taking the time and chatting with me and giving so much amazing wisdom
Thank you.
from you have an amazing perspective and I'm really grateful that you took the time. And you've already kind of answered my last question. This is a question that I ask of everybody who comes on the show. And it's a silly little question, but I find that it yields poignant answers. And the question is this: if you had an airplane that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Wow. I mean, you can only have one sentence, right? You cannot have like a page.
Essentially. Mm-hmm. This skywriting is only a few words.
Yeah, so let's go with this. Dare, dare, and don't be afraid to dare. Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Dare, dare, and don't be afraid to dare.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. And I, to me, that notion of being willing to do it, to try, is crucial. Again, one life. This is,
Yes.
you've got one life. Don't waste it. That might be mine. Never. I haven't really asked myself that question. I should, but I think that might be my answer. You've got one life. Don't waste it. So,
It's
Liel,
beautiful.
oh, thank you. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm excited that we're making a plan because I'm gonna be visiting
Yes.
Israel, and
Yes.
we're gonna meet in person, and that'll be just fantastic.
That would be amazing. We can
Oh,
talk so much longer.
I know. I'll bring my microphone. We'll
Just
do an
imagine the
extended.
sunset and coffee.
I'm already there. Wow. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much again. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you're going to need to find Liel, and I'm going to give you, in fact, I'm going to ask Liel, I would love it if you would, before I actually say goodbye, because I didn't do this, can you do me a favor and tell just where, if somebody goes, oh, I need to work with her, oh, I need to know more about her, where are you? What
I'm
are
on
your social?
LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
I'm on LinkedIn. This is, I think, my main social media presence. Just look for my name, send me a direct message, connect to me. I'm always happy to help. Really, reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. Yep, that's me.
Okay. So there it is on LinkedIn, and I'm going to put that in the show notes so you can click on that if you want to find Liel and you're not sure exactly how to spell her name. It'll be in the show notes, and go find her on LinkedIn. Obviously, you know that she's got amazing, innovative, creative ideas, and she's a star on the rise. So I'm so excited, and I'm again grateful to you for being here. And if you are enjoying the show, I'd love it if you'd leave a review or get in touch with me and let me know in person. I would love that too. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast, reminding you to listen, learn, laugh, and love a whole lot. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new. And if you like what you're hearing, please review it and rate it and let other people know. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, I'd love to meet you on patreon.com/innovative mindset. I also have lots of exclusive goodies to share just with the show's supporters there. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, keep living in your innovative mindset.